Hi, it's Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky back again with my plans and pans. There is so much to talk about. I'll try to get to some of the big highlights. I may leave something out because it's just a busy, busy time. This is the beginning of Black History Month, and I think this is a celebration, a commemoration like we've never seen before. On the one hand, within the last year, we've seen murders like of George Floyd, of Breonna Taylor, of Jacob Blake, who wasn't murdered, but was shot in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and he's really an Evanston young man. So on the other hand, what we've seen is a kind of empowerment, a political empowerment. We've seen electoral victories that have really been at the vote of the most marginalized people in our country, who understood through the last administration how much there was to lose. Remember, the president said, what do you have to lose? Plenty. And now we have a new president that understands the importance of diversity, of being the president of everyone, of making sure that we have justice and equality in our country. And we're seeing moves along those lines. And so I think that during this Black History Month, we can now be looking ahead and planning how we make sure that the kind of discrimination, wanton murders and shootings are a thing of the past. We're going to do our best. So last night was historic. Kamala Harris was the deciding vote in sending back over to the House what is the embodiment of the American Rescue Act, the bill that will provide the kind of relief during this pandemic time, but it's a broad bill, $1.9 trillion that it was originally. We'll see this afternoon whether that's going to be in the actual final decision, because it's going to come back to the House. But I think the point that is so important is that this legislation that we're passing now is going to help create jobs, help small businesses, help state and local government, money for childcare, money for a jobs program dealing with health care, raising more of the SNAP money. That's the food supporting money for people who right now are just suffering because they can't even put food on the table. It's the checks. An important element is the $1,400 that's going to be added to the $600 that has already been sent, and that we knew it was insufficient. The really good news about this recovery plan is that it is wildly popular. It is not about Republican or Democrat. It is not about red state or blue state. It's about Americans who can't take it anymore, need help in order to get through this. We know that at the end of March, unemployment runs out, and that's why we have to act now. And think about it. It's just barely 2 weeks since we have a new president, and it really is a new day. And so every day we're seeing executive orders, and we're seeing a good deal of money. I mean, when you talk about $1.9 trillion, that's a chunk of money to be spent on bringing back our economy, bringing back our families and our businesses, getting a handle on this pandemic. Also in this is the increase in relief, not just vaccine, but we still need to do testing. We need to have more personal protective equipment. So all of that is in the bill too, that deals with the COVID virus and finally with the cure. So I am really looking forward to seeing the implementation so that the promises that we've made become delivered to the American people. So the Biden administration is filling out its team, and we know that now Pete Buttigieg has been made the Secretary of Transportation, a really important role, and of course is the first gay man to be part of the administration. And we know that Ali Mayorkas was confirmed to lead Homeland Security. Why is this important? Because it's really about immigration in large part. And I am working with him right now to help stop deportations. A particular woman who has been separated from her family and is in deportation. But the focus now is also going to be on reuniting families. This is also part of an executive order that the president signed that says that we are going to put families, parents, back together with their children. One of the most cruel, disgusting policies of the last administration is finally over. There's also going to be a big increase in the number of refugees who are allowed into the United States, which is very important because the flow was virtually cut off, again, under the last administration. And one of my favorite executive orders is one that the president issued that requires a review of the policies and rules that were passed under the last administration to see what kind of changes need to be made. I think a lot of people have been talking about that. Let's get rid of some of those things that you know who did. And so that is actually going to be done in a very systematic way. I want to talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene. Why was it so important to take a vote to take her off of the committees that she was assigned to? The Education Committee and the Budget Committee, which I also serve on. I think it's the least that we can do. I actually have supported expelling her from the Congress of the United States. Why? Because she is dangerous. The kinds of things that she has espoused and the weak, nonsensical apologies, so-called, that she has made does not take away the danger that she presents. I'm not just talking about a theoretical danger. Let's remember that this is a woman who has called for the murder of some of our colleagues, a bullet to the head of Nancy Pelosi. Some of you may have seen Steny Hoyer on the floor yesterday, who was holding up a poster that showed a picture of Marjorie holding an AR-15 rifle. And with her were 3 young women of color, members of the House of Representatives, some say part of the squad. And the implication was absolutely clear that these people deserved an AR-15, deserved to be shot. And actually, she has said that Muslims should not ever serve in the Congress of the United States, should be prohibited. No, I think she has to go. But at the very least, we did get 11 Republicans. I say only 11 Republicans who joined us in this effort to get 230 votes to take away her privilege. But 199 Republicans actually thought that it was okay for her to serve as a regular member of Congress going to her committee assignments. So at least we got that done. You know, she is also just a deeply, deeply anti-Semitic person. She says that QAnon, which is itself is fundamentally anti-Semitic, that was then, and this is now, and she no longer believes that. But it's not actually all that long ago that she talked about Jewish space lasers that were the cause of, or are the cause of, fires on the West Coast, Jewish space lasers. And of course, she thinks that the mass shootings of the students in Florida and the Sandy Hook students was staged, that it was made up. And we saw her stalking David Hogg, who actually is the leader of the fight for ending gun violence, and he was a survivor of one of these shootings. This is a dangerous person, and she doesn't belong in the Congress, and I think ultimately we need to exclude her altogether. But at least we made some progress yesterday. So I wanted to tell you about some legislation that I introduced. I think many of you know, I'll talk more about that later, that we need more of everything when it comes to COVID. We certainly need more PPE, we need more testing, and we really need more vaccine. And so Senator Warren and I introduced the Pandemic Manufacturing Act of 2021. And what that says is that if we're not going to get the manufacturers to produce more, the United States government ought to produce it ourselves, that we ought to either contract with others, some generic brands, or that we ought to make it ourselves so that there is enough, rather than waiting for the private sector to come through. And we need to have some federal control over the supply chain to make sure that there's a rational distribution of what is needed all throughout the country. Some states get more, some states get less. We have to figure out how we do it in a very reasonable and measured way. Well, on COVID, there's some good news, of course, because there is a vaccine and there's another one coming. It looks like Johnson & Johnson is going to get approval for another vaccine. But in the meantime, yesterday, 120,000 new cases were there nationally. Illinois saw 3,328 new cases and 69 deaths. We are seeing, though, we're going in the right direction in terms of the cases and deaths in the state of Illinois. It is getting better. The entire state is now under the same rules that we saw in place last summer. Under phase 4, many businesses can now return to limited indoor service at 25% of capacity. This is not going to mean that you have to stop washing your hands, doing social distancing, and when you're not eating, having a mask. Those are still musts. When it comes to the vaccine, I want to remind you that I have a page on my website with all the latest vaccine information. We will also send emails regularly to update you about vaccine availability, especially when there are phone numbers that you can call. We know a lot of people are having trouble trying to do this online to find out where the vaccines are available. We understand your frustration. I am very, very frustrated myself, trying to help people to finally get access to the vaccines. It's been overly complicated, and hopefully it's going to be smoothed out in the near future. I'm going to keep working on it until that happens. So I want to end with some good information and good news about foreign policy. In this administration, we call it diplomacy. And a lot of important things have happened, and that would include the U.S. relationship with Russia right now. And what Joe Biden, an experienced diplomat, has shown, that you can both be tough with Vladimir Putin and Russia, And he certainly has told him that interfering with elections and all the mischief that he has caused in relation to the United States and the rest of the world needs to stop in no uncertain terms. But we also have extended the START treaty, which has made us safer when it comes to nuclear weapons. How do you do that? By being a mature diplomat and being able to deal with the pluses and the minuses at the same time. And that's what Joe Biden is, and we are better off for it. The other thing the president did was cut off support for the Saudis' attacks in Yemen. I am so relieved. Many of us were trying to do that for a long time with the last administration, and finally it is happening right now under Joe Biden. So I think we're safer at home despite January 6th. I think ultimately we're going to be a more peaceful society now, and certainly around the world. So let's see what the next couple weeks bring. I'll see you next week. Thanks. Thank you for watching my video. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, where my handle is @Jan Schakowsky.